Silver can take you 3 years or 4 years, longer than you could possibly imagine for it to do anything. And volatility works both ways, up and down. The silver bugs, of course, love upside volatility.
Downside.
Don't like the downside volatility too much. So you have to have a psychological and a financial constitution to be able to take the volatility and the time and the time it takes. If you do, it's a truly spectacular sector. I have a decent little speculative allocation to silver, and I don't know if it's going to move in 2025 or 2020 because I don't actually know if it's going to move at all.
Right.
What I do know is if it does move, it is not unlikely over 5 years that I get a 10-bagger on the portfolio. Will it happen? Maybe. When will it happen? I have no earthly idea. So people have to take it.
That's a signal of the public finally waking up, right? The banks wake up, the financial players who see a little bit deeper what's going on in the derivative system, they make their moves in gold before the public finally wakes up. What makes the public wake up? Well, not the derivative markets, the supermarkets. That's what makes them wake up. Then they go for silver. So we're going to see that at the very, very end. Where silver is going to go in the very, very end, of that cycle, in the hundreds, maybe even the thousands. I don't know. It depends. These numbers don't really mean anything when the dollar doesn't buy anything. So, I mean, it's anyone's guess, but I do think that the ratio, at least briefly, will fall to 15-1, which is what I'm waiting for. And when that happens, I'm just going to buy a bunch of stuff with silver, and whatever I can't buy, I'll just convert.
Tonight, we turn our focus to an emerging story that could redefine the precious metals market. Two respected financial experts, Rafi Farber and Rick Rule, are raising alarms that silver may be on the verge of its most significant breakout in history. With inflationary pressures mounting, geopolitical instability rising, and central banks tightening their grip, silver could soon emerge as the biggest winner in the commodities sector. For decades, gold has led the charge in precious metals bull markets, driven by fear-based investing. But history tells us that silver follows, and when it does, it moves at a pace that can leave even seasoned investors in awe. Could we be at that pivotal moment right now? And if so, what should investors expect in the months ahead?
Experience has been that precious metals bull markets get kicked off by gold. It's the fear buyer. There's two great investment motivators, of course, greed and fear. But the fear buyer is first, and the momentum needs to be established by gold before the generalist investor comes down into the space. And the generalist investor comes into the space because of greed. Midway through a precious metals bull market, when the generalist investor comes into the space, leadership changes to silver. It moves further and faster. And by the way, for people who haven't experienced a silver bull market, you won't have to ask Rick Rule if you're in one. Yeah, when it moves, it really, truly moves. Now, the silver stocks, to be honest, had a pretty good move in the beginning of 2024. I don't know if you remember that, but we described them as a coiled spring. And the better silver juniors were uniformly up by 100% in 3 or 4 months. They came off some. The truth is, first of all, that the subset of high-quality junior silver companies within the universe of silver juniors is fairly small.
Silver this, silver that.
There's probably 60 or 70 silver juniors. And one thing many of them have in common is no silver.
Right.
Which is problematic. If the price of something goes up and you don't happen to have any, it shouldn't matter much to you other than psychologically. The high quality silver juniors are a different matter. In my experience, the most volatile asset class in resources are the silver juniors. Doug Casey points out that when the generalist investor comes into the silver juniors, there isn't enough market capitalization in the silo to hold the money. And they do some truly absurd things, Ivan. Most of your listener base will be too young to remember this. But in the decade of the 1970s, one little tiny Spokane penny stock called Coeur d'Alene. Come 1990, by the way, though, we launched a couple little silver stocks. One called Silver Standard, went from 72 cents to $45 in 6 years.
Jeez.
The other did a little better. It was Pan American Silver. It also went to $45, but it started at 50 cents. Silver can take you 3 years or 4 years, longer than you could possibly imagine for it to do anything. And volatility works both ways, up and down. The silver bugs, of course, love upside volatility,
And they
but
hate the
they
downside.
don't like the downside volatility too much. So you have to have a psychological and a financial constitution to be able to take the volatility and the time and play and the time it takes. If you do, it's a truly spectacular sector. I have a decent little speculative allocation to silver, and I don't know if it's going to move in 2025 or 2020 because I don't actually know if it's going to move at all.
Right.
What I do know is if it does move, it is not unlikely over five.
The technical battle, breaking through resistance. For investors looking at key price levels, Rule highlights a crucial resistance zone between $32 and $35. Silver has tested this range multiple times in the past year, but has struggled to break through. However, history shows that when silver decisively clears a major resistance level with strong trading volume, it often leads to an explosive rally. If silver can hold above $35, we could see prices accelerate rapidly, just as they did in past bull runs. The setup is eerily similar to what happened in the late 1970s, when silver remained stagnant for years before surging from around $6 to nearly $50 in less than 12 months. Could we be approaching another historic silver boom? A hidden catalyst: military and aerospace demand. Beyond investor speculation and technical charts, there is another major driver for silver that has gone largely unnoticed: its increasing use in military and aerospace technology. While most investors are aware of silver's role in consumer electronics, solar panels, and industrial applications, few realize just how essential silver has become for advanced defense systems. From precision-guided missiles to high-tech surveillance equipment, military applications require substantial amounts of silver, and demand in this sector is quietly soaring.
Surprising to me is that gold hasn't had much of a correction for how long has it been? I don't even know. It's been months. On the one hand, like, I'm emotionally ready for a correction. Like, if gold were to go down 50, 60, 70, even $100 in some kind of like little crunch, it wouldn't surprise me, but it's not happening. And I looked at the commitment of traders in gold, right? And the worrying thing is that the bullion bank short positions are very near a record high in gold. But what I also noticed is that you go back all the way to 2008, 2009 to 2011, the strongest portion of the gold bull market of that era was after the 2008 crash, right? And then gold goes something from like 642 to 1923. What was it? From October 2008 to September 2000. So about 3 years. It goes from more than triples, about triples. And in those 3 years, the COTs, the commitment of traders, who's positioned what in the futures market, if you trust those numbers, I don't completely trust them, but I think they're basically accurate. Maybe they look very similar to now. And for most of those 3 years, the bullion bank shorts were at or near records for 3 years. So I'm saying, like, yeah, we're in a dangerous position where you could get people knocked out especially if they're in leverage or doing some kind of crazy trading strategy with options, which I never ever recommend. But those people could get kicked out if they're just trend followers or if they're hedge funds or something. But then again, we had 3 years of this from 2008 to 2011, so we could have that again, and we could just keep going higher from here, just like we did in those years. I'm not going to try to play it. With silver, silver didn't really make a move until 2010, 2011. So 2008, 2009 didn't do that much. Same thing in the 1970s, like from 1975 to 1979, silver did basically nothing. And then all of a sudden, 1979, 1980, the last half of 1979 into the first 3 weeks of 1980, silver just goes crazy. So that's a signal of the public finally waking up, right? The banks wake up, the financial players who see a little bit deeper what's going on in the derivative system, they make their moves in gold before the public finally wakes up. What makes the public wake up? Well, not the derivative markets, the supermarkets. That's what makes them wake up. Then they go for silver. So we're going to see that at the very, very end, where silver is going to go in the very, very end, of that cycle, in the hundreds, maybe even the thousands. I don't know. It depends. These numbers don't really mean anything when the dollar doesn't buy anything. So it's anyone's guess, but I do think that the ratio, at least briefly, will fall to 15 to 1. which is what I'm waiting for. And when that happens, I'm just going to buy a bunch of stuff with silver, and whatever I can't buy, I'll just convert back.
Farber raises an important point. Military demand for silver is rarely discussed in mainstream financial media. Unlike gold, which is often hoarded as a monetary asset, silver is consumed at an industrial level, meaning supply shortages could become a serious concern. If the market begins to price in this hidden demand, silver's upside potential could be far greater than many analysts currently predict. Silver's volatility, a roller coaster ride for investors. Despite its bullish setup, silver remains one of the most volatile assets in the financial world. Rule warns that investors must be mentally and financially prepared for extreme price swings. Silver can remain stagnant for years, testing the patience of even the most dedicated investors, only to surge unexpectedly in a matter of months. Rule recalls the meteoric rise of junior silver mining stocks in previous cycles. In the 1970s, small-cap silver companies delivered astronomical gains, with some rising from under $1 to over $45 per share in just a few years. Even in early 2024, top-tier silver juniors saw their prices double within months. But he also cautions that many so-called silver stocks lack actual silver production, making stock selection critical for investors looking to capitalize on the boom. A looming economic crisis. The bigger picture. Beyond silver, both experts raise broader concerns about the global financial system. Rule warns of a potential crisis of confidence, driven by rising tariffs, mounting debt, and an over-leveraged credit market. Tariffs, which act as hidden taxes on consumers, could weaken economic growth and contribute to higher inflation. And if trade disruptions escalate, they could shake investor confidence and fuel instability in global markets. Rule also highlights a brewing risk in the high-yield bond market, where millions of retail investors are unknowingly exposed to risky debt through ETFs. If a credit crunch hits, these funds could face liquidity issues, leading to what Rule calls the bank run of all bank runs. Such an event could send shockwaves through the financial system, making hard assets like silver and gold even more attractive as safe haven investments. Final thoughts. The greatest opportunity of the decade? The stage is set. Silver has broken out of a prolonged period of stagnation, inflation remains persistent, and economic uncertainty is at its highest in years. The question now is not if silver will surge, but when and by how much. For long-term investors, this could be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. But as both Farber and Rule emphasize, patience and discipline are key. The silver market is not for the faint of heart, but for those who can withstand the volatility, the rewards could be staggering. What are your thoughts on silver's next move? Could this be the biggest breakout in history? Let us know in the comments below. That's all for today from Economy Express, your source for fast, reliable market insights. Stay informed, stay prepared, and we'll see you next time.
Welcome to Economy Express, your go-to destination for all things economics and finance. Whether you're an experienced investor, an inquisitive student, or just someone who wants to stay ahead in today's ever-changing economic landscape, you've come to the right place. Now, let's get into the details of our news.